I have this appointment in 30 minutes and I have a 30-minute drive to get there.
Right.
I'm like, why would I put that reminder in my calendar 30 minutes ahead of time when I know it's a 30-minute drive?
Yeah. But
Uh,
this is an awesome example, right? Because, like the obvious, frankly, kind of insulting advice is, oh, set a reminder, you know? Okay, sure. But there is something of an art to when the reminder gets set.
Welcome to Hacking Your ADHD. I'm your host, William Kerb, and I have ADHD. On this podcast, I dig into the tools, tactics, and best practices to help you work with your ADHD brain. Hey team, this week I'm talking with Dr. Ari Tuckman, a psychologist, certified sex therapist, and one of the most well-known voices in adult ADHD. Ari brings over 25 years of clinical experience to the table along with his new book, the ADHD Productivity Manual, which takes an honest look at the tools we use and why sometimes they don't work out quite the way we want them to. It was also actually kind of funny. Before we started recording, we were talking about how it's amazing that our orbits have never actually crossed before. Well, in the episode, I do get into an anecdote about how I did attend one of his talks he gave in 2019, and those shenanigans that went on, but that's basically as close as we'd interacted before this. In our conversation today, we unpack how shame and compassion can hijack our energy, how to set reminders that actually help instead of hinder, and why simple doesn't always mean easy. We also touch on what it means to communicate our needs assertively without over-apologizing, and why trying to do everything perfectly is the fastest route to doing nothing at all. There's a ton of easy access, actionable advice in this episode. I had a ton of fun with it, and I think you'll love it too. If you'd like to follow along on the show notes page, you can find that at hackingyyouradhd.com/228. All right, keep on listening to find out what it takes to be productive with ADHD. All right, so I'm thrilled to have you here with me and talking about your new book, the ADHD Productivity Manual. And I think a great place for us to start here is this idea of, well, why does ADHD make productivity harder? Because sometimes it's like, oh, this is a very obvious thing, but I often, when trying to work through a problem, if I go, oh, well, why is this? Then that makes
Yeah.
the solution so much easier to find.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely does. I mean, I've got this is somebody else's saying, but a problem well defined is a problem half solved.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that it's such an awesome saying, because it really does capture it for not just productivity and not just ADHD, but also like, why is my computer doing this weird thing? Or, why does my knee hurt when I walk upstairs or whatever? Right. So, like, if you can be more specific about identifying the problem, then like you shorten the list of possible options. And this is why a diagnosis like ADHD or whatever is so important, right? Because it narrows you down, right? We know what works for ADHD. We know what doesn't work for ADHD. You've probably figured a lot of that out yourself before you got diagnosed. But, like a diagnosis helps you shorten the work a bit, hopefully. And I mean, the thing about it is, first of all, just being human and imperfect already is going to make it sometimes harder to get certain things done, right? So that's hardly a unique ADHD thing. It's not like everyone else is just cranking stuff out all the time, except for ADHD folks. Um, but finally coming around to the question that was asked, it's all that sort of distractibility, the forgetfulness, the not feeling the pressure of the deadline until it's a whole lot closer, to the current moment. That stuff where it's like, ah, crap, it really would have been good to have worked on this 3 days ago. But here I am the night before, just not feeling that like fire in the belly kind of motivation early enough to be able to, do what you need to do. But also like forgetting the details. Like, wait a second, did I get an email about this? Now let me scroll through my, email and try different search terms, right? So like wasting time on that or getting off on a tangent of dealing with something else. There's all the psychology of it, of like worrying, even if you're like, I'm pretty sure this is what it is. Like, here's what I need to do. but there's the worry of like, but what if it isn't? What do I not even know? I don't know. Right. So that can also make it harder. Um, or people pleasing so yeah, turns out there's a lot that goes into productivity.
Yeah, I'm feeling the thoughts about the missing the small details because this past week my kids were on spring break and so things were up in the air a little bit. But I had a few things I needed to do like appointment wise, and I missed. I got to all of them, but it was by luck, not by. Uh,
Not by design. Yeah.
yeah, I was just like I'd like look like have like something pop up on my phone like, oh, I need to. I have this appointment in 30 minutes, and I have a 30-minute drive to get there.
Right.
I'm like, why? Why would I put that reminder in my calendar 30 minutes ahead of time when I know it's a 30-minute drive?
Yeah. But
Uh,
this is an awesome example, right? Because, like the obvious, frankly, kind of insulting advice is, oh, set a reminder, you know? Okay, sure. But there is something of an art to when the reminder gets set,
yeah,
right? And this is a perfect example because the alarm for you should now stand up and walk out the door is fine, but that may not be awesome as your first alarm, right? That might be an awesome second alarm or third, but not first, you know?
yeah, it's certainly one of those things where, yeah, when you get that reminder is so important, especially like if I have like a reminder to take my trash out. If I'm getting that when I'm not at home, that's
Yes,
like, what
not
am I doing?
helpful. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is definitely a part of it about thinking about what's going on, where am I going to be, when is the right time to set the reminder. But even just more basic things of like, I've got this appointment at 3, I got to leave at 2:30, but what's happening at 2, right? Am I going to notice the alarm? Am I going to be finished with what I need to so I can just stand up at 2:30? So there's that part of things as well, which means when you set the appointment for 3, you first of all knew what it is that you needed to do, right? And that you, by the way, had it in your calendar and you could look at your calendar and say, yes, 3 is a good time. Let's do that. Or like, ooh, wait a second, I got this thing, probably 3 is not going to work out. Let's not do that.
Yeah. And it's then also remembering that there's a bunch of other things built around that task too. So appointment at 3, if I have that 30 minutes of drive, but I still have to get ready to leave, I still have to
Hmm.
park and walk into the building, check in with the receptionist, and like
Yeah.
all these little pieces that take time. It's easy to forget that they exist.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, because like 3 o'clock doesn't mean your car is within 100 feet of it at 3 o'clock. It means, you found a place to park and walked in and you found the right door. And, so there's that part of it. But, like there's also the kind of other thing. I've got this, I don't know, I kind of sometimes tell this story, but I've got a client who, set an alarm for his doctor's appointment and whatever. And he got there on time and he was awesome, except he didn't note down which office it was. So he was at the wrong office at the right time, which it turns out isn't actually that helpful for getting your meds refilled, lo and behold. So, so like that would have been something to include as well, probably in all caps, doc, Exton office or Westchester office or whatever, right? Especially if it's not the usual one. Um, so like this is like, so this is if it feels hard sometimes to be productive, to get all the details right, this is why, because there's actually a lot to it. It's not that you're stupid, it's that this stuff is actually pretty complicated and that a lot of things need to happen the right way for things to work out well in the end. But it only takes one thing to not work out for things to not work out well in the end.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for us to remember to, because there's so much shame that comes with ADHD. And when we this is the easy stuff that I can't do, that's not really help. Uh,
Hmm.
And it might just be the example I often go with is trying to be like simple and easy aren't the same thing. So being like, it's simple to do the dishes, but it's not always easy
Yes.
to do the dishes.
Yes. That's like, I love that line. That's so great. Yeah. Here, I'm going to give you a giant stack of papers to file. Knowing the alphabet is simple, right? Like if you know B comes after A, you've got it. But like it's not easy, right? Anyone's going to struggle to force themselves through a big, tall stack of papers, right? So yes, exactly. Simple and easy are not the same thing.
Yeah. And yeah, and then when we conflate the two, we often have this shame about, well, why can't I do this? And or, should be able to do this. And then also like when you're mentioning like, we have this like sense of like, oh, I could have done this 3 days ago. Why didn't I do it then?
Hmm.
And I find that dealing with the shame is often one of those things that's like does not feel like it's on the productivity radar, but it's definitely something that hits hard and makes it even harder.
Hmm. And it absolutely does, right? Because there's that just the basic sort of cognitive part of ADHD of, paying, remembering to do it in the first place and sustaining attention and resisting distractions and, generating motivation and whatever. But there's absolutely that more emotional piece, like you just discussed, right? And it's not just what are the emotions evoked by this one specific situation, probably not that big a deal, but what are all of the other emotions that come from other somewhat similar situations that get poured into this moment? Like that's the flood that washes you away.
Yeah. So in so I guess yeah, it's what we need to be because it was like, okay, how are we building this a better foundation to work from here? And so I assume that's something that is kind of what the focus of your book is, like, building these skills up.
It is. It is. I mean, it's sort of, this is one of those things. As always, I'm like, oh, this book isn't going to be that long. And then I keep having, I'm like, oh, here's an idea and here's an idea. And I totally have to talk about this, right? That like, so there's like 36 short chapters, but I talk about like 36 different areas that are involved or 36 different ways that we sort of get tangled up. Um, and some of it is the obvious stuff, hopefully stated in a more helpful way, but things like get enough sleep and, exercise and, take your medication and here's how to use a to-do list without hating it. And here's how to use your calendar and set alarms like we discussed. Setting up a good work environment in some various different ways, but also getting into the psychology stuff of like feeling overwhelmed or feeling like you have too many ideas or I don't know, the ways that we talk ourselves away from doing the things that we should do. Um, yeah. And then also kind of the social piece, right? Because probably what you're doing or not doing is, has some involvement with other people, or at least, they have some opinions about what you do or don't do. So, like there's that whole part of it as well of how do you not only figure out how to get stuff done, but also how do you negotiate with other people about what you should get done or how or when.
Yeah, because it's again a lot, and it's trying to figure out where to go here. But because I feel like there's this. I don't want to harp on it too much with the idea of simple and easy, but that does feel like a lot of what is going on here is that we need to step back and kind of be a little less judgmental of our tools.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if the tool works well, and it doesn't, negatively impact other people, then do it. Now it might be that you need to explain it to people, right? Because they're going to look at it and say, well, I don't understand that. I don't do that. What are you doing there? Um, Fine, explain it to people, help them understand why this is something that's helpful to you, particularly if it's something that better enables you to do a thing that matters to them. right? So if you have some coworker that you need to get something to, or if it's your romantic partner or whatever, right? Like they have some stake in this, then helping them see if I do it this way, you're more likely to get what you want. Most people are going to be pretty happy to hear it. The trick of it though is to say it in a way that's kind of straightforward, sort of assertive, and also not too apologetic, right? Don't come from a position of weakness or like, basically like, please give me permission to do this thing because you're not asking permission. You're informing them. Because if you get too kind of psyched out and weird about it, right? If you get kind of like skittish about it, then that's going to evoke something from the other person and it may not go the way you want it to go, right? So you're just kind of letting them know, FYI, here is the thing that I do. And yeah, I find it helpful. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah, because well, and especially those things that, aren't going to be big effects on other people. During the conversation, I have like fidget I'm playing. That is very easy to help me stay focused on the conversation and just do something with my hand that does not make any noise most of the time. Occasionally, I will like be recording and drop it. I'm just like strunk, and I'm like, oh, that was. Thank God for editing.
Yeah.
But,
or also maybe we don't edit and who cares?
Yeah. But yeah, but then there's I guess, yeah, but then you do have the things that will like, it can be very difficult with managing other people's expectations sometimes when they're like, no, but you should just be able to do this.
Yeah. And I mean, look, that whole debate about whether you should or shouldn't, like, whatever, maybe you should, like, but here we are, like, I'm telling you, I know myself and this works much better. So now, having said all this, there's a difference between doing a thing that doesn't particularly impact someone else in any kind of real tangible way. It's more like they don't like the idea of it, right? So if I was sort of rigid and was like, why are you, playing with that thing in your hand that looks disrespectful? You shouldn't do that. Right. But it's not like you're hitting me with it. And it's not like you're clicking it so I can't hear. So like I don't actually have a stake in this. That's my problem in that case. Now you might try to explain it to say, like, no, actually, it helps me focus more, not less. So this is better for you if I do this. Right. And maybe I can get it. I'm like, okay, cool. All right. Or I don't really understand it, but like, fine, whatever. But if I continue to be offended by it, that's kind of my problem at that point. Um, Now that's kind of different if it's a thing where it's like, honey, I need to leave all of my stuff out because out of sight, out of mind, like maybe, yes, but also like you have a roommate, right? That might be your spouse or kids or someone, but like you have roommates. So like you do need to figure out how to live with other people. And what is that sort of balance that we can all sort of live with?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And then there's definitely the aspects with, like your family, people you live with, and then work things are also can be very complicated because power dynamics, some of us are going to have a little bit more privilege in working with people that are going to be understanding, and other people are going to be like, yeah, I don't even believe in ADHD, so whatever you're saying doesn't fly. And it's like,
Sure.
I'd love to be able to tell people, hey, just don't work there. But I understand that's also not realistic.
Right. Right. I mean, having said that, there are times when I think you do need to recognize this is not a sustainable situation. Like, this is not a good fit. I will not be happy here. I can't convince this person, whether it's a job or a friendship or a relationship or whatever. Right. And like, in at those times, it is not a small thing, but it's better to leave on your timing the way that you want to than it is to, wait for the axe to drop. So, like, that is sometimes the only good option, but it's not an easy one. Um, But at other times where it's someone who doesn't have that extra power over you, so there isn't like a boss employee or whatever, right? Like that's different where it's like, look, sorry, man, like I'm sorry this bothers you. You can have every opinion you want, but I'm going to do what I'm going to do here, and you don't have the right to stop me. Um, you know, again, as long as it's kind of a reasonable thing, like you can't be a jerk and say, well, I have ADHD, so that's on you.
Yeah, it's really going into the difference between excuse and explanation kind of thing.
Mm,
It's like, oh yeah, I'm late because of, you know, factors, but it's I have to acknowledge my being late affects other people, and I can't just be like, well, it's just my ADHD. She's got to live with
sure.
that.
Yep. Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. So, it's kind of knowing the time and place, for things or knowing what the situation is. Um, I sometimes say that other people shouldn't be working harder on your ADHD than you are. Right. So if it's more work for them to accommodate you being late and you're just kind of strolling in casually as if you didn't really put any effort into getting there on time, that's a setup for resentment. Like they will absolutely resent you because the balance is wrong. I'm working harder than you. What's up with this? Um, on the other hand, if you show up late, but you somehow, right, you really convey like, I am really sorry. I am doing my best. It's not great, but trust me, this is my best. Right. 20 minutes late is as good as it gets. I could be an hour and a half late. So I'm not going to say count yourself lucky, but like I worked my ass off to only be 20 minutes late.
Yeah, or like yeah, any number. And I feel it's also that's something we can consider giving ourselves grace on too. Is like the number of small errors I've made, and like booking reservations. So
Mm,
like being like I'm trying to think of a number of things. I'm like, oh, there's you know, uh, driving to the wrong airport, and it'd be like, yeah,
mm,
it's there are a lot of things that go wrong, and I do have to give myself like, hey, I know I'm trying my best, even if it self talk sometimes convinces me otherwise.
yeah. 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 And I mean, that's exactly it. Right. And of course, the thing of it is, in that awful moment of realization where you realize you're at the wrong airport, um, beating yourself up doesn't get you to the right airport, you know? So, I mean, this is very easy to say, but it's sort of like, okay, well, now what? Here we are. Now, what is my best move? What can I do to fix this? Perhaps, how do I make amends if other people are involved? Um, and trying not to get completely flooded in the emotions and then either shutting down, beating yourself up, letting other people beat you up, or getting defensive and blaming other people and just making it worse. Like how do you sort of get your head back on and then figure out what your next move is?
Yeah, and staying out of comparison because we always kind of be like, oh yeah, like I don't have my stuff together, everyone else does,
Of course.
which is also so. When you emailed me, you had sent me something like, yeah, we haven't really had our path crossed too much yet, and it did make me think of the first uh, ADHD conference I went to. I went to a presentation you were doing, and there was a board that put questions up on the board.
Mm,
Like you just like would like text them in and they'd go up, and I was like, oh, this is neat. And I saw someone like had, a censored swear word on there. I was like, oh, that's really neat that they have something that automatically censors. I wonder how that works. And so I just tested it right like off the bat. I was just like, and so it did this question: does anyone have their shit together? And it like popped up on the board, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't automatically censor it. Huh. And
that is so awesome.
I love this because it like really demonstrates the impulsivity side of ADHD, where he's like, oh, this is how this works, and they were like, oh no, it doesn't. Uh, but then it was also great having because you then actually took the time to answer. It's like, well, no, we have moments of time where it feels like does everyone have their shit together? And it is like, yeah, it's no one always has all their shit together all the time. Like this is a continuum of like, yeah, sometimes I'm gonna be getting it, sometimes I'm not. And it was like, oh yeah, that is it turned out to like, I'm like, oh, impulsive worked out because it turned out to be something that a lot of people needed to hear too, is because it does feel like everyone else has their shit together. You know, we're watching these people put on these presentations at the conference and they're like, oh man, they know what they're doing. And then I talk to those people and they're like, man, I got my presentation in like 5 minutes before, and then I got my actual edits for my slides done, you know, the hour before the presentation.
Sure. Yeah. And that is definitely a real thing. We actually had a friend of mine, Kim Kensington, who's a psychologist in LA, who's done some presenting for us, although not recently, but she actually did a presentation on kind of that, on how she has struggled a lot with her ADHD and also continues to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was a more sort of honest, like, this is what it's really like, as opposed to sometimes, for presenters and certainly social media, right? There's so much of like, it used to be hard, but now I'm killing it, which
Yes.
then just makes you feel like a total loser. It's like, great, you suck at life and also you suck at ADHD. Way to go.
And yeah, it really is that. Like, we need to understand that there are going to be exacerbating factors for our ADHD sometimes. Right now, I'm having a ton of allergy problems
Mm,
from the spring, and I'm like, allergies are not there's yeah, allergies are not a strictly ADHD thing, but they certainly
right.
exacerbate my symptoms because I'm not
Yeah.
sleeping as well. I have something that's constantly a distraction where I'm like, oh, I'm having to take allergy meds all the time, and it's being like, okay, well, this is going to be a time of year I have to step back a little bit and do a little bit less because I'm getting, I just can't be as productive as I think I should be.
Yeah. And that's 100% true, right? That, and again, not an ADHD thing. That's like a all people thing.
Mhm.
And whether it's allergies or whatever else that's, impacting your ability either to function well or to feel good, right? To kind of acknowledge that, right? And maybe I need to change my expectations for myself a bit. Or maybe I just need to, I'm still going to do the stuff, but I'm going to change my expectation that it's going to go like it used to, right? This is going to be more of a struggle. Fine. I'm just going to push through. I'm okay with it because of just whatever it is, what it is, or I just need to do it, or I don't have that luxury to cut myself to slack. But I know it's going to be harder than it normally would be. And I'm going to kind of let that be what it is.
Yeah. I find often what I need to really focus on in these times is just like, how am I setting myself up for success? Like, am I setting up the environment well? What am I doing that's going to be good for me down the line? Like making sure I'm blocking my distractions on my screens and all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's just one of those things where you need to then, I don't know, invest a bit more in some other places in order to maybe counterbalance a little bit. So like for myself, I don't always sleep great. That's sort of a struggle. Like I'm pretty good about my habits, but my brain doesn't always sleep well despite that. So, like if I have a really bad night of sleep, best thing I can do is like a really hard workout. So I'll go down and sort of ride the bike in the basement and, sweat it out. And it just kind of clears that fog and the headache. And it's just like a less bad day, you know? So kind of things like that of just sort of recognizing here is a thing I need to do to at least rescue what I can.
Yeah. And one of my other favorite ones is realizing I can like reset my day whenever to like be like, like, oh, if I have like a morning routine that I didn't get through, or, there's things I know I can do through my day, feel better, like make sure I have a bit of breakfast. And I'm like, if I need to do that at 2 p.m., I can do that. And then an hour before kids get home, and that's fine. At least I got that out.
Yeah. And And that's definitely a thing, right? Because of course the temptation is to just grind through. Oh, I've got an hour. I gotta, I don't have time to stop to get something to eat. Right. And you just kind of slog through, but probably don't get as much done, or at least the quality isn't what it could be. So sometimes taking that time to just take a walk around or to grab a snack or to do whatever, right? Like that sort of sharpening the saw kind of a thing, it kind of that time gets returned, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. Because I also find the grinding through, that was the strategy in college I had.
Mm,
Because before I had my diagnosis, and it made sense. It's like, oh yeah, you just got to do what you got to do. And
yeah.
sometimes that means sitting in the library for 5 hours and not getting anything done. But that's just how you do it. But then that's like, oh yeah, but that also like stole from my future self. Like I was using to make that grind happen. I was just the next week I'm also going to be useless.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing about it is, I can understand why that college student did that, because it's sort of like, well, this is my best shot. This is my best of the available options, you know? And it sort of worked, like it did. I mean, you did manage to graduate, right? So I suppose it was effective, right? Now, at what cost, of course, is, the thing we're talking about here. But it's also a thing of like, maybe that is not how it had to be. Sometimes sort of knowing when to say when, go do something else, and then come back and, in 2 hours, do the 2 hours worth of work, or at least the hour and a half worth of work, and get it done. But that assumes you have some faith that if you leave, you'll come back,
Mhm.
which might have been the issue. Um,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what I know now, I'm like, yeah, being like building in accountability and building in uh, being able to like, yeah, go for a walk or something and being like, oh, this is going to actually set myself up to do what I need to do. And even if it doesn't, at least I got to go on a walk and that's somewhat productive anyway.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And by going for that walk, you're going to actually get more done total in that time
Mhm.
than just bang your head against the wall.
That's actually been killing me recently where I normally, that's my go-to is to go for walks. I'm like, yeah, I can't go outside. Allergies. Broke out
Yeah.
my N95s a couple times to walk around outside and being like, ah, neighbors can judge how they want,
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
um, but yeah, it's and so yeah, I feel like doing those pushing is one of those things that's been one of the hardest lessons for me to learn. Because yeah, sometimes I do need to, but not most.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Because like persistence is admirable, like in general, that's an admirable trait. But there comes a point where persistence sort of bleeds into stubborn, or rigid or stuck or something. Um, and it's that thing of kind of knowing when to say when. Um, but I don't know. I think that takes good self-awareness, particularly in the moment of like, am I really getting things done, or am I just spinning my wheels?
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of when I did more sports, playing through injuries. Like
Mm,
at the time, it felt like the right choice. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this, and then I'm like, oh, I'm just hurting myself,
sure.
and this is. It got to the point where I'm like, okay, I got injured. Just that's it. I'm done. I don't have the mental faculty to make this decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, this is kind of hurting. I could stop now and take 3 days off, or I can keep going and take a month off.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean it really relates to how people hit burnout now. They're
Hmm.
they're like, oh, I have this idea of how much I should be able to produce. I'm going to keep going until this gets done, and doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah. And it does kind of raise that bigger question, which I think, everybody struggles with to some extent. But I think especially if you have a history of kind of undiagnosed ADHD and really kind of struggling a lot more, is kind of this question of like, you know, how good is good enough, and who decides, like do I let other people define that? Do I define that for myself? How do I handle other people's disappointment when they're like, hey, I need you to get this to me, and you're like, sorry man, I can't do that. Or I choose not to, even not that I can't, it's that I could but I don't want to. Usually we say I can't because as if like I'm being prevented by some external force that I can't control. But um but how much do other people get to vote on that? What is the right amount for you? There's always more rewards that come from being more productive, but there's also always more costs, you know? So is it worth it? Is it not worth it? But to like really actually think about it, right? To really sort of think about, what do I want my life to look like now? What is worth it? What is less worth it? Um, and to get even a little bit more kind of deep on this, there's even this question of like, do you even deserve to ask the question of, am I allowed to decide I don't want to do these things? Or is it a thing of like, no, but I just have to because, other people want me to?
Yeah. It is really humbling sometimes to like step back and be like, oh, if I didn't do this thing, it'd be fine. Like it feels really important. I can also not do it. And that's okay. I can choose my priorities here. And it's hard to do sometimes, but it is often worth it where I'm like, because often when I'm like in that state of like, I'm feeling burnt out, I feel like something's going to give. And then I'm like, oh, just do less. Like it's something that like, I'll like be talking to my therapist and be like, so I'm like, and really I should just be doing less. That's what I should do. Just do less.
Right. Yeah. And Chris, the thing about that is, there's sometimes this thing of like, no, I have to do it all. Right. And then we just sort of plow ahead. And then lo and behold, it turns out we don't actually have the time to do it all. Right. And then the stuff that doesn't get done just happens to be the stuff that, wasn't done earlier, So it's sort of like random external factors are deciding what didn't get done. Right. As opposed to, let me take a few minutes and actually think about it and make some wise, better choices about what doesn't get done, as opposed to like this more roll of the dice kind of a situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, we have all these like things where we're like, well, yeah, the stuff that I was doing earlier in the day, that got done because that's when I had the energy to do it. That was before I was feeling bad. Maybe I should put the things I really want to get done that part of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of call that, just because it makes for a nice alliteration, don't spend gold on garbage,
Mhm.
right? So in other words, that that kind of deeper work, like I really need to focus on this. I need some time, uninterrupted, like good energy to really sort of lock in and do this, right? Like that project deserves a special part of your day. And if you spend that or some of that day doing trivial things like loading the dishwasher or scrolling emails or whatever, right? Like you're using the best, most productive time on these, like, I could be half brain dead and I could still do it kind of stuff, So like guarding that really good focus time and using it for the hardest things that you need to do.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also seeing this through this lens of things that I need to work on, being like, then I know I'm going to have these brain dead times. Don't put things that I feel are important there. Like if I want to have good friendships, don't put that the times that I'm only or not functional. Like that's not good for me or my friends. That is
Yeah,
kind of like I fall into that trap of being like, even though these are things that are fun and give my life meaning, I'm just going to put them to the side and have them be the filler stuff.
sure. I'll get to it eventually. Yeah. It sort of reminds me, there's a sex therapist and author presenter named Marty Klein. He has this line where he said, sex is the thing Americans do when they're too tired to do anything else. Right. And it's exactly the same idea, right? It's like, honey, you are so important to me. Our relationship is so important to me. But I've got all these emails to return. So what if we hang out at, 10:30 when we're both completely exhausted and have the least amount to give to each other? So whether it's your friends, your relationship, your kid, your whatever, right? Like, is it getting your best time or your worst time?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the interesting aspects of productivity that I've been trying to figure out is like, how do I kind of redefine what productivity is for me in
Hmm.
being like, oh, this is more about doing the most important things that I want to do, less about checking things off on a list.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the problem with checking things off on a list is that list it keeps growing.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, who even put them on the list, right? And is it even the things that are actually the most worth doing? So, like that's a part of it too. And even if you're just talking about something simple like a to-do list, or just more broadly about like the tasks that we take on, it's really easy to just sort of accept the tasks like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, but not investing that kind of cognitive effort of, is this really, is this really a thing I want to do? Like, is this meaningful? Does it support some goal that's important to me? Is there a benefit to this? Is it really worthwhile? Right. And if we just kind of knee jerk say yes, because either we just don't stop to think or we feel like we have to, um, you can wind up agreeing to a lot of things. And then it's that kind of scenario of maybe being busy because you're doing a lot, but not necessarily productive in the sense of I'm doing the things that matter to me. I'm moving my life forward. I'm making a difference in the world.
Yeah. And then we can also fall into the realm of meta productivity. We're working on our
Mm,
productivity and trying to, and I'm like, some of that very important. Having a functional
mm,
to-do list, great. Make sure you have that. Don't have a to-do list that you never use. It is easy to also be like, I'm being productive, even though I'm not actually doing anything.
sure. Yeah. Look, I'm doing things that look like I'm being productive. It's sort of, it might, I don't know, to me, the sort of like favorite example of this is when everybody was all hot on bullet journals
Mm-hmm.
and people spent all this time making these amazing, beautiful looking bullet journals, but they weren't getting things done with it, right? It's like spending all your time sharpening the chisel and not actually doing any woodworking.
Yeah. And I mean, there is some aspect of being like, oh yeah, if doing that first part will get you to the second part, absolutely.
Hmm.
That's fine. But if the first part is hindering you from getting to the second part, that's when you got to really look.
Yeah.
Some people are like, yeah, I couldn't use my bullet journal. It didn't look great. Do that part,
Hmm.
make it look beautiful and functional and everything you need. But if you're just doing it because that's your favorite part, you can still do that. That can be a fun thing for you to do, but don't make that
Yeah.
get in the way of what you want.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, right? If fiddling with your bullet journal or your to-do list or your whatever, becomes its own procrastination, then, my feeling on that is do whatever you want, just be honest about it, right? If you're like, yeah, my bullet journal is really more of an arts and crafts project, fine, like do it, like knock yourself out. My only thing is don't say I'm doing this so I can get more done because you're not actually getting more done you know and the only reason why I say it is not because I care what you're doing with your bullet journal, but you might care, right? At the end of the day or at the end of the hour or whatever, when you look back, or you can be like, God damn it, that was a total waste. Like I didn't freaking get to any of the stuff I needed to do. Right. Like if you're going to beat yourself up and feel bad about it, then I don't want that for you. On the other hand, if you're like, this thing looks awesome, check this out, right? And you feel good about it, great.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I know like when I'm finding myself being like, I can't get anything, if doing that mind shift to being like, well, you know what? I'm not going to get anything done this next couple of hours. I'm going to actually take this time off. That feels good. But if I spend those 2 hours pretending to work and trying to get there, that I feel awful. So it's really just kind of like reframing that in my mind, and it really helps.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, we're kind of coming up on time here. So I was wondering if there were any final thoughts you wanted to leave the audience with.
I think what I would say is productivity is complicated, right? There's a lot that can happen in any given moment that affects our ability to do the thing that we want to do, or even to figure out what the hell we want to do. So it is complicated. So in that sense, cut yourself some slack when you get stuck. But I think what I would also say is, and therefore, when you feel like the wheels are turning, like pull back a bit and like, okay, so wait, what is going on here? Like, what am I missing? If this should be working and it isn't, then why isn't it? Right. And that it's not voodoo and it's not like, impossible, math equation. It's just, you just need to kind of step back and do your best to figure it out and to try to figure out what you can do next.
Yeah. And the book is the ADHD Productivity Manual. And we were planning to have this out when that's out. So
yeah,
be wherever you buy books.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I'm super psyched about it. I think there's a lot that's really great. I think the tone is just right. I think there's a lot of good information. And psychologist Marcy Caldwell, a friend of mine, did a bunch of awesome line drawing illustrations. So it just looks good too, which is kind of cool.
Well, I'll definitely be looking out for it when it comes out. When this podcast comes out, I'll be I've read it.
Yes.
Oh, time never works quite right in my brain.
Right. Now you're going to get some complicated grammatical construction. When that comes, you will have had read it or something. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'm sure people will really enjoy it.
Well, my pleasure. I'm glad our paths have officially crossed now.
Thanks again to Ari for coming on the show, and thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end. Be sure to check out Ari's new book, The ADHD Productivity Manual. But before you go, let's do a quick rundown of today's top tips. 1. Make sure to include contextual details in your reminders. Put the address, building name, or even office location in the event title so you don't show up on the wrong time or in the wrong place. 2. Make sure to distinguish between simple and easy. Just because a task is straightforward, like taking out the trash or doing the dishes, doesn't mean it's easy to do, especially with ADHD. 3. Be strategic with your best focus times. Don't spend gold on garbage. Use your high focus hours for harder tasks, not emails or unloading the dishwasher. Do less, but do so on purpose. Sometimes productivity means pulling back and intentionally choosing what not to do, instead of just trying to do everything poorly. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear what you thought of this episode. Feel free to connect with me over at hackingyyouradhd.com/contact, or you can find me on Blue Sky at hackingyyouradhd. If you'd like links or to read this episode's transcript, you can go to the show notes page at hackingyyouradhd.com/228. And if you'd like even more Hacking Your ADHD, be sure to sign up for my newsletter, Any and All Distractions, which comes out every other week. In it, I give out my best distractions of the week, be they what I'm reading, what I'm playing, or what I'm watching. I also try to give out a few bits of actionable advice in each newsletter, although your mileage is going to vary there. If that sounds like something you're interested in, head over to hackingyyouradhd.com/newsletter to sign up. I also wanted to make sure that you know about the Hacking Your ADHD Patreon, which you can find at hackingyyouradhd.com/Patreon. I've gone with a pay what you want model, meaning that all levels of the Patreon will receive all the same stuff. You can pay $0 or $2 or $10, and it's all the same. The only real difference coming from the roles that are assigned on the Hacking Your ADHD Discord, which you get access to from the Patreon. So if either of those things sound like something you're interested in, head over to hackingyyouradhd.com/Patreon to sign up. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/@hackingyyouradhd. And finally, if you'd like to support the show, the best way to do so is to tell someone about the show, especially if you think a particular episode would resonate with them. Just click the share button on your podcast player. And now for your moment of dad. What did the drummer call his twin daughters? Anna 1, Anna 2,